Howard's Way was the big thing in the 1980s, not the TV series, but the story of a footballing legend who returned to the club where he'd won the old First Division Championship and, as a manager, returned the title after a 15-year absence. Most remarkably, Howard Kendall had built a blue team on Merseyside that knocked the dominant Reds of Liverpool off their perch. As he entered his third season at Everton, Kendall was on the verge of being sacked. But the green shoots of Goodison growth were about to prevail in 2 cup runs. It was the springboard to 2 championships in 3 years and European glory. A League Cup final defeat was followed by their first FA Cup final victory for 18 years. And by the next season, Howard's team had matured to take on an incredible treble. They beat Liverpool by 13 points to win the league title. They won the club's first European trophy, but were exhausted by the time they returned to Wembley in the FA Cup final, losing to Manchester United in extra time. Despite that, this was a truly golden spell in the history of Everton Football Club. 3 Goodison greats, remembered for their contribution over this time, are here to share those memories. A Welsh-born left-winger of Irish descent, he'd already played for neighbours Liverpool before moving across the city in 1982. Kevin Sheedy was renowned for his left foot. He was a dead ball specialist, and whether scoring from free kicks or the penalty spot was unerringly accurate. At Everton, he made 357 appearances. He scored 97 goals, none more famously than in the 1985 European Cup Winners' Cup, scoring in the final itself. Another man that holds legendary status at Everton started his career in Dumbarton. Graham Sharp joined as a 19-year-old and spent 11 years at the club. He went on to become the 2nd all-time leading scorer for the Toffees, behind the legendary Dixie Dean. He was voted into the greatest Everton team by their supporters and scored the first goal in that FA Cup final victory over Watford. My next guest scored the 2nd in that victory over Watford and the 1st in the Cup Winners' Cup final defeat of Rapid Vienna the following season. He really needs no introduction to viewers here on Sky Sports. When Andy Gray joined Everton, he'd already become the most expensive footballer in British history when in 1979 Aston Villa sold him to Wolves for £1.5 million. Whilst at Villa, he was the first player to win the PFA Young and Players Player of the Year awards, only Cristiano Ronaldo achieving that feat since. As Howard was building his young team, Andy provided a wealth of scars and experience to lead a youthful front line and score many, many vital goals. The irony, of course, Graham, is at the start of all of this golden 18 months or so, Howard Kendall was in real trouble, wasn't he? How close to the sack was he?
He was very close. I think we had a game, I think it was against Coventry, a midweek game, and the petition was out to get rid of him. You know, there was leaflets going around the ground, supporters weren't happy, and it was very, very close. So I think all credit to Sir Philip Carter and the board of directors at the time. They said, listen, we have faith in Howard, stick with him. And fortunately for us and for Howard, it turned around. But I would say it was very close. It was hard to play at Goodison Park. We were getting crowds something like 8,000 at Goodison, which was a horrible atmosphere to play in, and it was getting to the players as well. They were nervous, and it showed in the displays. But as I said to you, they stuck with them, and you know the rest is history.
Did you ever think, Kevin, that you made the wrong decision to move from Liverpool to Everton?
Not at all. No, I was mostly in the reserves at Liverpool, so I used to go and watch Everton playing in midweek games, and I saw Sharpie make his debut, Adrian Heath playing, and so when the opportunity came, it was a great decision for me, and I knew the side Howard was putting together, and it was easy to fit in.
One of the turning points, it was so legend has it anyway, Andy, is a Kevin Brock back pass to Inchy Heath, I think it was, in one of the League Cup
That was in the game, Jeff. I think, just going back to what Graham was talking about that week at Coventry, when they played Coventry, there was a few things happened that week, I think, that really started the turn. I think that was the week when Colin Harvey got promoted from the reserves to being Howard's right-hand man. Now, I think that was a massive shout from Howard then. Also, Peter Reid. Reid had trouble with injuries, was in and out the side, got back in the side, started to play on a regular basis, and of course I signed. So it was the big 3 things that happened that week, Jim. but I think those things all went to
I think they were 5th bottom, weren't they, when you arrived?
They were 5th bottom, and I knew when I arrived there, I knew that Howard was in trouble. I mean, I think I was probably Howard's last throw of the dice. Yeah. I think if it had failed after that, Howard would have gone. And I think that's how close he was. And I can remember Sir Philip, Graham mentioned Sir Philip, he was really upset that the press had a go at him for saying, well, Sir Philip's come and given Howard the legendary vote of confidence, so he'll be out the door. And he was really upset that people thought that he was coming out saying he was going to stay, but he was actually going to be sacked. That's the kind of man Sir Philip was. But there's absolutely no doubt. I was cup tied when the lads were playing at Oxford, but everyone thinks that night it suddenly just turned everyone round in that cup run and just and set them off and running. It was a big moment in Everton history, that Kevin Brock back pass. No doubt about that, Jeff.
I mean, Graham, obviously you've been there when Howard had come back. What impact did he have initially? He was player manager.
He was his player manager when he came back. But the famous thing when Howard came back to become manager, he made 7 signings, which were called the Magnificent Seven. And these were the signings that were going to take Everton on to the next level. It didn't materialise. Probably the only one that came out of it was Neville Southall, the goalkeeper, a fantastic signing. But we were a young side, and Andy said there before about Colin Harvey. A lot of the lads had grown up with Colin from the youth team and from the reserves. And it was somebody we always looked up to. So when he was promoted into the first team with Howard, instant respect there, and that was a turnaround. But obviously Andy's here, the signing of Andy and Peter Reid. We were a young side, and Andy will tell you we were going nowhere in his words until he came along. But no, we lacked confidence. And Peter Reid, obviously an experienced player, and then Andy was the final piece in the jigsaw. And I just think with their attitude and their desire and will to win from Reedy and Andy, it just pushed us on a little bit, because at the time we were struggling, lacking in confidence, and we just didn't know where the next result was coming from. But as you said, the Oxford game, Evertonians now look back at that and say that's when they could see the tide was turning. A little bit fortunate there, because Oxford had a great cup run at the time. They had Briggs and Shotton and Bobby McDonald had scored a lot of goals for them. So I think going down there,
Bobby Mac scored that night, I think.
He did. Oxford were the favourites. Oxford were the favourites that night, and that just showed you how far Everton had fallen. But we got the result, through the back pass. Got back to Goodison for the replay. We beat them 4-1 up at Goodison, and that turned things around.
How long had you been there for, Andy, then, when that... I know you didn't play that night, you were cup time, weren't you? But how long had you been there when that Oxford game came round?
Oh, when was that? November-ish?
Yeah, because it's snowing in the replay,
yeah. Because even when you arrived, it wasn't easy at first, was it?
It was dreadful, Jeff. I can remember, that week was a big week. They'd been hammered on the Saturday before by Liverpool as well this week, when they played Coventry, beat 3-0 at Anfield, at the Sheeds. And so obviously the Evertonians were down. But I think after that, and when I got there, and I really went training with the lads, and I thought, I really right away, Jeff, I mean this, I'm not just saying this because they're here, I went for a few training sessions, and I thought to myself, wow, Howard has got some unbelievable talent. I really meant that. People like Sheedy, who I'd never seen, Trevor Stephen, who I'd never seen, Gary Stevens, who I'd never seen. He was trying to find a goalkeeper, Howard. He wasn't sure between Jim Arnold and Neville at the time, was he? He kept rotating them, but he eventually went with Neville. Kevin Ratcliffe was there, Adrian Heath was there, and Reedy. And I'm thinking to myself, why are we struggling? Why is this team not busting full of confidence? And it was that word, it was just lacking in confidence. And that was a game. I think there was another game, I don't know if you remember when we went to Birmingham late December in a league game. We went to Birmingham City and Howard pulled us all in. We'd been struggling still, even though we got the good result in the league. And he said to us all, listen lads, this is it. Can you remember him? He said, this is it. He said, if we don't get a result today, I am going to seriously have to think about making changes. And I remember we beat Birmingham 2-0 at St Andrews, and that again was another big league match where the confidence came, the confidence grew. But honestly, Jeff, the difference between then and where we got to, it was scary how quickly these guys went. It really was. As kids, they were unbelievable.
In the difficult times, Kevin, was it particularly difficult for you? Bearing in mind that you had come from Liverpool, first player in 20 years to move across from Liverpool to Everton.
It was a big move for me, and obviously Evertonians will think, well, if he wasn't good enough for Liverpool, why would he be good enough for Everton? So it was important,
especially when things are not going well.
That's it, yes. So I think that's when you got to have belief in your own ability. And as Andy said, we did struggle at times, but once we got a few results, confidence started to grow, and we kicked on from there. So sometimes you got to have bad times to enjoy the good times, as they say. So we certainly had the bad times, but then once we all got together and clicked, then we moved forwed.
You were secretly a bit of an Everton fan, though, weren't you?
Yes, yeah.
You used to go and watch them?
Yeah, did. Yeah, well, I lived in Diggs in Anfield, just round the corner, so used to watch the midweek games. I saw Sharp, as I say, make his debut against Leeds. I think he gave Kenny Burns a bit of a hiding, and I knew what I was going into, so it was a good move for me.
I mean, obviously, when you came, Andy, you know, you'd been the most expensive player in British football. It hadn't gone well for you.
No.
You had all sorts of injuries and so on. And,
Yeah.
and so, I mean, did they think you were finished when they sold you?
Who?
Did Wolves think that you were finished when they sold you?
No, I mean, it was a bit... they might have done, Jeff, to be quite honest with you, because, I mean, I guess for the first time in my life, my professional life, you know, you and guys wouldn't know this, but you get to a stage when things are going as well. Remember what a horrible time Wolves were having, into administration, didn't know where the money was coming from. I was probably the only asset Wolves had. So I had a pretty good idea I was going to be sold. It wasn't much, but I was going to be sold. So, and I thought myself, is there anything left in there? You really do have self-doubt sometimes as a footballer when things aren't going well, and I really believed that. But then when Howard took me up and I had my medical, I mean, to all intents and purposes, I failed my medical at Everton. No doubt about that. I went in, the doc looked at my knee. Honestly, Jeff, by that, I'd played in the midweek against Preston, I think, in a League Cup tie. I had a shocker of a game. I said to him, I said to him, did you watch me at Preston on Wednesday? He said, yeah. I said, and you still want me to come and sign for you? And that's how desperate Howard was at that time. But my knee was out here, Jeff. And Doc Irvin, who's still a doc.
Still a doc there, yeah.
God bless him. He said to me, I can remember he said to me, if we don't sign you today, this was a Friday, he said, what will you be doing at the weekend? And I said, well, I'll be playing. He said, you'll be playing on that? He said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, I know my knee, doc. I said, I know what I can do on it and I know what I can't do on it. I said, trust me, if you don't sign me, I'll be playing for Wolves at the weekend. And Howard went, right, let's get the deal done. And that was it. But I had massive doubts about whether I could do it. And I guess because I was the oldest in the side when I got there, and all these young lads were just rushing about and had so much talent, I suddenly thought, wow, you know, that you know, the old juices got fired up very quickly again for me. Very quickly.
In the run-up to the cup final, I think in the programmes that were printed prior, I wasn't even in the starting 11. I think Terry Curran had played in the semi-final against Southampton at Highbury.
Did you not play Highbury?
No, I was subbing. I came on, and then so there was a little bit of, you know, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? But prior to the cup final, I managed to score, I think, 3 or 4 goals in the games leading up to it. And Howard decided to put me in there. So again, I know it's an old adage again, but a dream to play at Wembley in an FA Cup final. And I was fortunate enough to score the goal. Gary Stevens attempted a shot and it fell to me inside the box. Good first touch and shot in off the post. So it was a fantastic start for us. As I said to you before, Jeff, they'd started the better. You know, and they had a couple of chances, and Morris and John Barnes, you know, big players for them. They had a couple of chances. Neville pulled off a couple of saves. So it was important to get the goal at that time. And I said, once we got the first goal, I think there was only going to be one winner.
And then a few minutes after half time, I think it was Trevor Stephen who crossed, wasn't it?
What, Trevor? Tricky Trev.
And what happened next?
Well,
Nat Lofthouse came in.
it was strange. I mean, everyone talks about it, Jeff, really, and I've watched it so many times since the day, and I still say that, you know, was there any contact between me and the chair with the goalkeeper? No, I didn't collide with the goalkeeper at all. He collides with the big boy Terry.
Yeah.
Was it playing centre back? And he was playing centre back. He collides. He's backing away like this. So I'm coming in from this angle, and he's really at full stretch, Jeff, like that. And as he goes to, I think he takes away that hand, and he's trying to bring it in like this. And I come from this side, and just as he's trying to bring it in like that to catch it, I just put my head in between his hands and managed to just get the softest touch on the ball. He kept going backwards. That's where his momentum was taking. The ball dropped down there. They've collided, so no one can get up, and it's just barely got over the line. But to be fair, I would be honest. I'd be lying if I didn't say I did look round to the referee. And I thought, is he going to let that go? Because 9 times out of 10, protect goalkeepers. He could easily have imagined I did clatter him, but I didn't. And to our good fortune, and this is what happens, you know, you need to be lucky as well as good to win trophies. And we got the decision when we really needed it. And once we'd gone 2-0 up, I think it was cruise control from then on for us that day. But I understand it could easily have been not given.
Would it have been given today?
Probably not. Probably not. But that didn't mean it to win the goal.
No, it just said it.
I think it's the way they all tumbled over. Terry tailed, he fell. I was the only one that didn't fall because I didn't touch them. Now, if the ref saw that, absolutely brilliant. I'm delighted. But no, that was a good moment for me. Obviously, everyone dreams of scoring in an FA Cup final. We'd watched it for. Well, I had watched it for a lot longer than these lot. And everyone dreamt of winning the FA Cup final, scoring in the FA Cup final, and that was just something special. Even though it was nothing like Shappy's goal.
Looking at the guys in the team that day, I can imagine it was quite a celebration, was it?
It was. It certainly was. And that was
What
the
makes
thing.
you say that, Jeff?
Well, looking at Jeff, I think when Howard came in as well, and when Howard first came over, I'd been used to Gordon Lee before, and Eric Harrison, who went on to Manchester United, was the first team coach. And Howard came in, and it was a total different mentality in terms of training and camaraderie, off the field as well. So Howard was a great believer in that. So when Andy came in and Reedy came in as well, the old stages, if you like, that night we had a fantastic night, and it was important that we played hard on the field, but also enjoyed ourselves off the field as well. So we had the banquet that night. Yeah, it was fantastic. It invited all our families down, and we had a really good night. But that was part and parcel of the team. People talk about it now and say, even though when we meet up nowadays for dinners or whatever, people can't believe, a relationship now is still as strong as it was when we played.
It is like that. I mean, how long was it since I've seen you?
6-8 months, easily.
Must be easy. And we haven't seen Inchy for... He's in Houston somewhere, little Inchy, isn't he? Working over in America. But we all get together, Jeff. It's like we'd never left. It's like we're still there. And that's what... And every great side, and I would argue anyone who says it's not true, every great side, even the modern sides, need the kind of camaraderie, the kind of togetherness that we had in those years to get you success. You cannot. I don't think you can achieve success without it. I don't think you can just be somebody who disappears from training, doesn't get involved in this. You have 11 players who just go their own way after training and never get together socially. I don't think if you have that, you can really achieve the kind of success, certainly in this country, the kind of success that teams have over the years. I think United have it in abundance right now, Manchester United. Like all the great teams, Liverpool's, and the teams that have won things, there's an amazing togetherness about them. Every player you talk to will talk about the togetherness, the one for all for one mentality that's involved in all that. And it's part and parcel of being a good side.
What was Pat Van Den Houw like?
Reg, he was a one-off, wasn't he?
What did we nickname him? What was it?
Reg.
Reg.
Yeah. He was
not from the craze, was it?
Yeah.
That was him.
I mean, first and foremost, he was a great player. He was a right-footed left back. Played behind me for many games, and really trained really hard. Off the field, he used to socialise quite a lot. Shall we say? We used to pick him up in the morning, didn't we? Yeah. Sometimes we'd beep the horn, and sometimes he'd come out, and sometimes he wouldn't be there. So
some of his classics, Jeff, have been he'd go out for a loaf of bread at 5 o'clock on Monday evening. Say his girlfriend, I think, or his wife at the time, I'm nipping out for a loaf of bread, love. And then we wouldn't see him till Friday morning training. He'd just disappear, wouldn't he?
Yeah. As Kevin used to say, we used to pick him up, and we lived close to each other, and we'd take him into training. So we'd come back about 1 o'clock, 1:30 or whatever, and Pat's wife would be in with my wife. So I'd walk in the front door. Where's Pat? He's got an injury. So he's got an injury, don't worry, he's got an injury, he won't be long. 3 days later, he's still getting treatment on the injury. But then...
It was intensive.
It was intensive treatment, but then you'd come in on the Friday, after having a few days, then play on the Saturday, and he'd be like top man on the Saturday. He was incredibly fit. His back was worse than his bite, I would say. His back was worse than his bite.
I mean, he would front people up, wouldn't he? And he would be frightening, because he was almost like a psycho mentality. Pat, I loved him, but he was. I mean, if you fronted him up, he would check it and go back again. But you'd rather have him in your side than play against him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So you've won the FA Cup, and I'm sure you're hoping it's a springboard for a good season the next season. I'm sure you couldn't imagine quite how good. No. But do you remember how the next season started?
Yes. Tottenham at home.
Yeah.
But I mean, he brought in. You talked about Pat Van Den Houw. When you have success. We won the cup, and everyone's wondering what's Howard going to do. Who's he going to bring in? There were two major changes, wasn't there? There was Pat and Paul Bracewell, and Brace cost 200 grand or something from Sunderland, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, that was these two big signings. I obviously paid the price for that in the Charity Shield. I missed out that day because I'd been carrying an injury, and Howard says, "I'm not playing you. I'm going to play Brace and Sharpie and Inchy up front," and that was fine. But those were the two major changes. They were the rest of the team was pretty much. Being asked to do what it did the year before, but those were the two big changes going into the opening day.
Yeah, the Tottenham game, we were everybody expecting, full of expectations. First game at Goodison, the cup winners playing at home. Before long we were down, 4-1. I think Inchy scored their only goal from a penalty spot. But all of a sudden, from being the high of winning the FA Cup, going into the season full of expectations, thinking, this is going to be our season. And I think we lost that game, and I think our first game was a televised game. No, against Chelsea?
No, it's worse. I think it's a worse start from memory. I mean, Jeff might have the stat, but I think we lost 4-1. went to West Brom in midweek,
Yeah.
and lost 2-0.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
See, our
lost that as
our first victory was Chelsea away on a
We started
Friday
with
night.
2 defeats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, started with 2 defeats. Those Spurs games, but they could turn into a bit of a battle sometimes, couldn't they? There's Miller and Roberts. Were they the 2 hardest central defenders at the time?
They were for me, Jeff, but unbeknown to me, Andy'd had a run-in with him before he came to Everton, so I didn't know that. So all of a sudden he's brought it from Wolves and Aston Villa, whatever,
shock there,
to Everton. So I didn't know this, so obviously when we played, within the first couple of minutes I knew there was something not right here, because we were kicking lumps out of us, and it was something that had gone back to Andy's days with him. But they were hard competitors, you know, and it was like, it was a battle, especially down there when, you know, again, you look at things nowadays, but they were like off the ball things and everything else. It was crazy, and that was thanks to my mucker there, who'd previous with them.
Listen, it's part of your education, that was. You thank me for that later.
How would you manage to fall out with them then?
Graham. It was Graham in particular, Graham Roberts. One game he'd kicked me from pillar to post at the Molyneux, playing against them, and I caught him late on the game with an accidental stray elbow that happened to knock him out, and he had to be carried off. And I think from that day on, Graham did his best to half me in 2 every time he could, which I fully expected him to try and do, Jeff. It was that kind of game in those days, and I was very up for it and very aware of it, and you know, that was fine. I mean, I think in those days you had to do that. People like Kenny Burns around, you had to let Burnsy know if he's going to kick you. I used to say this to Sharpie, you know, don't be intimidated by any centre back that you play against. If they're going to steam into you and give you one, and be prepared to whack them back and say, listen, 2 things can happen here. We can either spend all day kicking lumps out of each other, or we can get on with the game. It's up to you. And invariably the hard guys would say, okay, let's get on with the game, as long as they knew they were getting some back. And I think that was the thing with Graham, but I had omitted to tell Sharpie about that before he went out, strolling about. He's trying to collect it on the halfway line. Little ball in from Sheedy, he thinks he's taking his time. Whack! Take that, Sharpie.
But I mean, you had the basis of it. I mean, your midfield was a special midfield, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, it was obviously Reedy and Paul Bracewell. I used to call them the hod carriers. Just go and get the ball and pass it to myself or Trevor on the wings. But no, it was. We had a great balance, and all you needed to do with these 2 up front was just stick the ball in the box, just get half a yard. They knew it was coming in. But also, even if they didn't get the ball, they'd stop the defenders clearing it. So you're always having them under pressure in and around the box. So if you didn't find one of those heads, you'd find the other one's head. So.
I mean, look, there were some great moments as that season went on. I think you absolutely thumped Manchester United in the October, and you scored probably the most memorable goal of your career, didn't you, against Liverpool?
Yeah, did, Jeff. Again, we talked about it before, and we had this inferiority complex going over to Anfield over the years before that. But the most important thing then, as you said, we won the FA Cup final, we were doing quite well in the league. We hadn't won over at Anfield, I think, for something like 13 seasons. So it was a big ask for it, but we went over there, and yeah, it was, I managed to score a good goal, but more importantly,
A good goal.
it was, yeah,
See,
more
a good
importantly,
goal.
it gave everybody a lift to say, listen, we can go to Liverpool on their own patch and match them, you know. And after that game, we were just on a high, and we went on, you know, to bigger and better things. But it was important that we got a result over there. As I said to you before, in years gone by, you know, we went over there not expecting to win, but we went there that year, had a good side, knocked the ball around. I think deserved to win. You know, okay, the goal, but I think we deserved to win, and that gave us more confidence, you know, from the rest of the season. So whilst it was great to score, and a lot of Evertonians now continue to talk about the goal, more importantly for me was it made the lads believe, hold on, we can match Liverpool, we can surpass Liverpool this season. That managed to be the case.
I know they were playing well, Jeff, because at that particular stage in my life at Everton, I was sitting watching this.
Were you?
Well, I'd got injured, as I said, I missed the part of the season. Now, to be fair, Graham and Adrian just about ripped everyone apart in the first 12 or 13 games of the season. They were in fire. They're the best front 2 in the land by an absolute distance. The team were playing unbelievable football. I was really frustrated. I was getting really frustrated. You know, I was never used to sitting on the bench. I'd never done it before, and you know, I think for 13 games, I sat on the bench and didn't get a game. And I just thought, well, you know, you got to be patient, because the lads are playing really well. Sadly, Inchie got injured.
Yeah, bad injury.
A really bad injury. Did his cruciates, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did his cruciates against Sheffield Wednesday. And that gave me my opportunity. And I think one of the satisfying things on a personal note of that season was when that happened, a lot of people thought that was it for our title chances. They thought that losing Adrian and the way those two had played together, I was completely different from Adrian. totally different.
They thought we would be too similar.
And they thought we'd be too similar. They thought these two can't see the season out and play together and have success and get enough goals. And it was really, for both of us really, because we're good pals as well as anything else, it was for both of us, it was really satisfying at the end of the season, or the season went on from there the way it did. But it was one of those where I sat and watched these guys for as I say, 12, 13 games, Jeff, and they were just magnificent. Never looked like losing a game. Confidence was way up here somewhere, and they were just great to watch. Great to watch.
You didn't just win the league, did you? You absolutely, destroyed the other side. I think you lost to Chelsea, I think, in December. I don't think you lost again, till May, when it was all over by then.
Yeah, we didn't lose another game until it was all over.
No.
And Howard rested a few of us.
I think we lost that Chelsea game at home. I think it was 4-3. I think Gordon Davies scored a hat-trick for Chelsea at the time. But there was always one game, I think it was Sheffield Wednesday away. And Sheffield Wednesday were a decent side at the time.
And horrible to play against.
And horrible to play against.
Do you remember, was it Howard Wilkinson's Sheffield Wednesday at the time? Yeah. And when the offside, what was it like trying to play against offside there? Because the old offside rule, Jeff, Howard Wilkinson's sides, well, if you had a corner against them, you can imagine this, picture this, you get a corner against them, and somebody from their team batters it out into the other half. Every single one of their players sprinted as fast as they could, 40 yards from their goal. So we, having all been in there, we're trying to get up in there, we're all trying to get back, because obviously if it came back you were offside, even if you're running back. And how many times did you spend running back, sprinting back towards your own goal? They were absolutely horrible to play against.
Yeah, but we played that game, and I remember going to Hillsborough on the bus, and Andy stood up before we got off to go into the players' entrance and said, listen, we ain't leaving here without getting something. And it was around, I think it was around about Easter time.
Who said that?
You said that. Yeah, we're not leaving here without getting something. As it happened, we went there. It was a difficult place to go to, and we won 1-0. Andy scored, and we went on the bus after that, and we believed then.
Tell them about Neville's save that day.
Yeah, Neville saved from Lee Chapman, was it?
Chapman, was it Verratti?
Low down, yeah. But I think the game you mentioned, Man United, when we beat them 5-0, for me that was the game that said, yeah, we can win the title.
Did you score that day?
I think I scored 2. I scored a header as well. No,
he never. Not a header.
He did.
Kevin Rand tried.
Oh, he did.
Headbutted the back of my head.
You get knocked out a wee bit there.
But certainly when confidence was going, getting changed before games, and depending on the opposition, you knew if everyone played to their potential, or even 70%, you knew you had a good chance of winning games. But it all, his confidence was really high at that time.
That was just an amazing year. It was just unfolding, and I think Evertonians just said, we are going to, how long this lasts we don't know, but while it's lasting, we are going to make the most of it.
But let's talk about some of those European nights. Fortuna Sittard for a start, Andy.
Yeah.
European hat-trick.
It was my only one, sadly, but it was a good European hat-trick. Fortuna Sittard. In fact, Jeff, if I have to tell you that Cup Winners' Cup run came very close to falling apart against UCD of Dublin. Nobody?
No.
Somebody. We were 0-0 over there.
Yeah.
I drew 0-0, came back to Goodison. I wasn't playing, I think I must have been injured again. But I'm watching this game, we can't score, and I think they hit the bar or something.
Yeah, late on.
Late on, didn't
they? They hit the bar. And if that
we were 1-0 up, and they hit the bar, Jeff, in the last couple of minutes. Had that ball gone in, we're out the Cup Winners' Cup final. They're through in their away goals, but we stumbled through somehow. Then I was lucky enough to get a hat-trick against Sittard at Goodison. It was a great occasion for me, personally. But every team we faced up until Bayern Munich, I think we just felt we'll beat them.
Yeah,
we'll beat them. That won't be a problem. But obviously Bayern Munich was a different kettle of fish.
Exactly with UCD, and you said we went out there and went Bratislava, and all that. This was new ground for us as well. But again, with that belief that we'd go out there and get something. Then Sittard. So looking at it nowadays, you'd probably think it was quite an easy way through, and you're thinking, Then the big one was obviously Bayern Munich in the semi-final. That really was the final, if you like. Although Celtic were involved with Rapid Vienna, another one, and you're just thinking, this is a final, Everton versus Bayern Munich, and it was a fantastic occasion, especially at Goodison, and one again that Evertonians still remember now.
Well, it's known, isn't it, as Goodison's greatest night. But before that, you had to go to Munich, and I think I'm right in saying you had a very depleted team, didn't you, when you went to Munich?
Yeah, I failed a fitness test just before the game.
I never played.
But the lads dug a great 0-0 draw. which obviously helped us. And then the return leg, we went 1-0 down, and it was 50,000 there, and you could hear a pin drop when the ball hit the back of the net, so we were up against it. But the second half, we turned it round.
What did Howard Kendall say at half-time then?
It was the famous one, wasn't it? We were kicking into the favourite end of Gladys Street, and they just said, listen, keep going the way you're playing. We were a goal down, keep going the way you're playing, and the Gladys Street end will suck one in. You know, and the kicking into that end, it's always a favourite end to kick into. And he was true to his word. You know, the fans were fantastic at the time. And I managed to get my head on a flick from Andy, I think.
I don't know if you touched that.
I got a slight eyebrow.
No, you never.
I got a slight eyebrow.
I'm telling you, I've seen
says
that.
it says in the record books. It says sharp there.
Yeah.
We got back into the game, Jeff, at 1-1. And again, with the backing we had, you know, they were rocking a little bit. You know, again, Bayern Munich, as Andy said, they'd Matthäus playing and
Eder,
yeah.
big centre forward. He's
Rummenigge, Soren
played.
Lerby playing.
Lerby played Faf in goal.
Yeah, so they did a fantastic team, but I don't think they'd encountered anything like that at Goodison. Goodison was rocking. We were physical. You know, we battered them into submission. Once Andy scored the second goal, you know, there was only going to be one winner. They were shell-shocked.
Well, in the end, we won it comfortably, and I don't think the manager was very happy.
He wasn't very happy, the manager, but again, we look back and people say, oh, you were over physical then, but listen, Bayern Munich could look after themselves. I think one of their players caught Reedy with over the top tackle and gashed his shin and everything else. So it was a real battle. You know, people talk about, you know, the pace of the game's changed nowadays, but if you looked at the reruns of these games, this was frenetic. This was frenetic.
A measure of Reedy, though. He's talking about that tackle, Peter Reid. This is just a measure of what kind of lads we had there, Jeff. He catches him just in this part of his leg here, right? Just misses the shin bone, didn't he? And Reedy's now got a hole in his leg, about that size. An actual hole with the studs gone straight in it. And so the docs come on and say, oh, I need to get you off and stitch that. And Reedy's going, what? Stitch it? Come off. Cotton wool. Comes a big wad of cotton wool, shoves it into the hole, pulls his sock back up, ties it up, and then he's off and running again. He's away. We'll deal with that after the game. Never even got it stitched at half time.
No.
And at the end of the day, he's got one blue sock and one red sock because the amount of blood, we'd never be allowed to play on like that these days. But like Terry Butcher-esque, he was like that night, really. Just shoved the big dot of cotton wool down it, tied it back up again, said, we'll sort that out after.
Had you ever known an atmosphere quite like it that night?
No, that was 50,000 Evertonians. Just hit the top step going out, and the atmosphere, I say, was just electric, and there was no way we were going to lose that night. We went one down, as I said, but certainly the Gladys Street played their part, the whole ground did, and it's something I always remember, the atmosphere.
The final, you know, against Rapid Vienna, wasn't it, in Rotterdam? Any danger it would be an anticlimax?
No, not really. I think because at the time a few of us went to watch Celtic play Rapid Vienna at Old Trafford when they had to replay the game because of crowd trouble at Parkhead.
Do you remember we got stopped that night?
We did. We got stopped in the motorway.
Do you remember that?
Because you were driving in the car and they thought...
It was funny that.
Yeah.
There was me, you,
and Shane
Reedy. So we're driving, I don't know what car we had. What did I have?
You had a
BMW or something like that. So four of us are driving across the M62, weren't we?
Yeah.
Next minute, the blue light comes on, Jeff. Pull in. I'm like, what's happening? We pull in. Well, four guys driving a BMW, we just thought we'd pull you over just to make sure. They thought we nicked it. They did. They thought we nicked it. I said, no, honestly, we're just going to watch Celtic at Old Trafford play Rapid Vienna in this rearranged game. And we went over and we saw them. And
we said at the time, we looked at it and neither side frightened us. You know, whoever got through, neither side would have frightened. We came away and we thought, we'll beat any of these. And as it happened, Rapid Vienna got through. So, again, going into the final, we're not overconfident, but with the belief that, listen, we've seen what they can do. Their main player at the time was Hans Krankel up front, so he was always going to be a danger. But overall, the team, we thought, nothing to be frightened of here. So we're going into the final, and obviously we came back and spoke to the lads.
There was a playmaker who didn't, was it Panenka? He didn't play. They had a really good midfield player, I think. And I don't think he started. He might have been on the bench. I think he was injured. But I think it might have been Panenka. Might have been that was a bonus for us, you know, because we were new to this. It was new, but you know, I think the only thing about Celtic, I was pleased at Rapid Vienna won it because I just think Celtic, Scotland v England, all of the things that go around an English side playing a Scottish side, Jeff, would have made the final much more difficult for us. Rotterdam would have been not only full of Evertonians, it would have been full of Celtic fans. Thousands of them. And whereas Rapid Vienna didn't have that many there. We totally dominated it, support-wise. And I was, on a personal point of view, not because I'm a Rangers fan, but I thought for us to win the final, I thought it would be much easier for us to beat Rapid Vienna than it would have been to beat Celtic.
True about that. As I said, and on the final as well, Sheedy said, we looked loads of Celtic fans in. in the stadium in Rotterdam. Obviously, they'd wanted to get there. They'd been knocked out, probably people say unjustly, in the semi-final, but they came over and supported us as well, so it was fantastic to see them over there. But as I said, I thought we were always going to be favourites here, and I think on the day, without saying it, I think it was a comfortable, even though they got one back at 2-0, it was a comfortable victory for us in the final.
Yeah, you scored the first, hadn't you, Andy?
Yeah, I got the first. Sharpie did ever so well, did brilliantly for me, chipped it over. It was a simple volley at the end into an empty net. But it was an important goal, because although we had dominated this side, it was about 60 minutes in, we played an hour. And we had a goal disallowed first half, and we thought, well, okay, we'll just keep playing. I don't think Neville had a save. I can't remember Neville having a save of any importance in the whole game, Jeff. It was that comfortable. But you always get that nagging feeling if you don't get one. Just what if? And I think once the one went in, we kind of took our foot off the pedal. We actually thought for the first time that season, I think, in a big game, we thought, that's it. And they went right up the park and scored, didn't they?
Well, we got 2-0. Trevor scored,
and then they went up
the park. And then Crankle got one back, 2-1, and then you're thinking, a little seeded out goes in there. It's not as easy as we thought, but fortunately, Kevin down the other end.
Kevin Sheedy.
Yeah. I think they were still celebrating getting the goal, and we went straight down. Sharpie laid the ball off, and
did you lay another one on for
another one,
another assist.
So 2 assists that night.
Yeah. So 3-1, and I think then all our minds sort of looked towards the FA Cup final on the Saturday. But no, it was. As we said, the final was against Bayern Munich.
But was that the most memorable goal of your career, would you say?
For Everton, probably yes, to score in a final. I mean, I missed out on the FA Cup final, as Andy said, but no, to score in a European final was a great memory.
Because you scored some spectacular goals, hadn't you? I think most people remember where you scored twice effectively against Paul Cooper at Ipswich with the free kick routine.
That's the best ever.
Yeah.
That's the best ever.
So just tell us about that.
There's most Evertonians, that's what they remember before mostly. Just a free kick on the edge of the box, and Paul Cooper was sort of lining the wall up, so I bent it in his top right hand corner. The referee disallowed it, and so I think he overcompensated because he knew I could put it in the top corner and left a bit of a gap on his left hand side, so I managed to chip it over the wall into the bottom corner. So
that was brilliant. That was brilliant. It's the best I've seen. Wasn't it fantastic? You could do it. You could do it with that left foot. You could open a tin of beans with that, son. There's no doubt about that. This wasn't just an ordinary Cup Winners' Cup final win. This was a historic one, as far as Everton were concerned. We became the first Everton side to not only get to a European final, but actually win a European final. So, from that point of view, we had created history on that Wednesday night. And you're caught between the euphoria of that and, oh, wait a minute, guys, there's also a little, 3 days' time, there's also a small matter of trying to, when they retain the FA Cup final and complete a unique treble. But we flew back straight away, didn't we? Straight after the game, pretty much, back into speak late. What time did we get back?
It was middle of the night, and after the game, Gary Stevens and myself, we got called to do a urine sample, and so it took us about an hour before we managed to deliver. Got back into the dressing room and everybody had gone. There was just our tracksuits there, so we missed out, having won a final, missed out on all the celebrations.
No, I'd forgot about that.
So, what sort of time scale then, in terms of the week? When did you actually get down to concentrating on the FA Cup final?
Friday.
No, we didn't do anything, did we?
That's what I'm saying. We came back on the Wednesday night, and I remember coming back, and Andy said we get back into speak, and I think I went to Andy's, and we sat down again and watched the game in Andy's house. We watched it again. So I think I got home something like 2:30 or something. I think we were off in the Thursday. Thursday off, and then Friday report to Belfield, the training ground. No training.
Straight to London.
Just bang down on the bus, and it wasn't like planes, and it's on a 4-hour journey down to London and prepare for the FA Cup final. So there wasn't a lot of preparation. I don't think Howard really needed to prepare the lads. Really, it was just a case of this is a team 1 to 11.
We were supremely confident that fitness levels stood up, that we could beat them and win the treble. I think that was the thing that Howard believed himself in. And I don't know whether it's unfair, I don't know. There are people say, we came back in the plane, and I think Howard allowed us a glass of champagne on the plane, because there were supporters on the plane. So there are some people who think that maybe you lads had too much to drink on the way back, but we had a plane full of supporters. And Howard allowed us all to have a glass of champagne on the plane, just to say, well done lads, celebration, that's as good as it gets, we'll keep it till Saturday. But I just think that we certainly weren't the side that trotted out at Wembley we weren't the side that trotted out on Wednesday 3 days earlier. That's what I would think.
Definitely.
Physically.
I mean, were you aware at the time just of, what a historic achievement it would be? I mean, what a treble that would be.
I think you just go from one game to another. You don't really think about it until after the event. Not really.
I think I might have thought about it. I think I might have thought about it. Seriously, I'm much older than them, of course, and these lot were probably planning on winning 3 and 4 more doubles and trebles, But I was certainly wasn't. But I had thought about it. There's no doubt about that. I had known that winning a double in those days would have been just stunning, the FA Cup and League. But to chuck in a European trophy, I thought I did a little thing, Jeff. I thought it would be pretty special, but I guess these lot just thought they would win it. That's
because you'd only just got there, in fairness. I think the semi-final was against Luton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you scored in the last minute, didn't you, to take it extra time?
Yeah, it was a free kick. I just managed to bobble it in, and Derek Manfield scored in extra time. Yeah. Remember the final itself, it was an absolute baking hot day, probably similar to the final that Chelsea just won, but it was absolutely roasting. I think circumstances were against us. Kevin Moran getting sent off really gave them a lift and didn't help us.
Actually, it did give them a lift, didn't it?
Yeah. I think we had them on the ropes a little bit.
We were tired, Jeff. There's no doubt about it. Sharpie and I, obviously, up front, we chatted, and I can remember coming out the tunnel and I'm thinking, okay, I think I feel all right. And I had a chat with Sharpie after about 10-15 minutes. I said, how are you? He says, I'm struggling a bit, tired. And I said, so am I, but we need to keep going. And I think we did all right. I mean, I look at the game now and I think we did okay. I think we still, I thought, were the better side for a long spells in that game. I think Giddy kicked one off the line, didn't he? From Reedy. We had one kicked off the line, it struck the post and went away. I talk about luck and good fortune. It didn't go our way. And Shappy's right and Sheedy's right, that the sending off, instead of lifting us, it lifted them.
Definitely. And it lifted their supporters as well.
Aye.
But the thing what we say about the sending off as well, it was Reedy's fault. Because Reedy had Andy hearing down the left, hearing down the right. He should have let us in and slip us in, but he obviously went another Kevin Moran, unfortunate for Kevin to get sent off, first man to get sent off, but that gave them the lift. Backs against the wall, they grew from there, didn't they? And we were wilting in the heat. And I'll still say now, and see a big Ron Atkinson, when I seen him, I've just said, listen, if we'd have played you 2-3 days later, we would have won that treble.
If there'd been a week's gap, I think we'd have won it.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you took it to extra time though, didn't you? You know, I mean, you made them go the whole way.
And only having one substitute, was it one sub? Was it still only one sub? I lose track of those. I think it was still only one sub.
Might have been, yeah.
I'm sure if it was 2 or 1, Jeff. But not having enough to change it in the way you can these days, pulling 3 people off and putting 3 on, it might have made all the difference to us that day because, Howard gambled. It wasn't much of a gamble because I think if he'd have turned to any of us after Wednesday and said, you're not playing on Saturday in the FA Cup final, I think he might have got a mouthful off of a few of us.
That was the only game and a fantastic goal that won it, Big Norman Whiteside, fantastic goal. And we'll always see now when we meet Neville, and Neville doesn't like taking criticism lightly, but we always said to him, that was your fault because you covered your near post too much. Because if you see the goal, he's kind of holding his near post. Couldn't blame him because it was a fantastic finish. But we see Neville now and we say, listen,
I always
say that to him on the telephone rather than
yes, I did, Jeff. Yeah,
I always blame the brace. Paul Bracewell. I always blame Paul Bracewell because Brace was knackered by then as well. And then just as that move's building up, he had the chance right on the halfway line. You bring down Mark Hughes, I think it was. Hughes he played. Yeah. He had a chance to bring down Mark Hughes on the halfway line and bring this move to a stop. But Brace being an honest Brace, as he was, and he's kind of done that and let Mark skip past him. And then Mike says, and Reedy always says to Brace, why don't you bring him down? If you'd have brought him down, we could have had 3 more days rest. Because I do think if we'd have got to 0-0, I think we'd have beaten them in the replay. I really do believe that as well. I think we were better than them. And I think they knew that. They just beat a very tired, I think a very tired, mentally as well as physically tired side. And the last day of the season, on a really hot day.
It had been an astonishing 18 months or so, hadn't it? I mean, was there any hint, Andy, at that stage that you believe in the club so soon?
Not then, Jeff. But Everton were trying to do what Liverpool had done, and I totally understood this. They were trying to do what Liverpool had done for 20 years. When you have success, you strengthen. Don't strengthen when you're weak. Your best time to strengthen is when you have success. Everton could attract anyone to them that time because they were the champions in Europe, they were champions of their own country, just missed out in the FA Cup. This was the team every player wanted to join. So if Howard was going to be true to what he believed he wanted Everton to be, he had to strengthen. Sadly for me, he came to me in my home in the summer and he said, I've had an offer from Villa. And I says, so? He says, well, I just thought because it's Villa I'd give you an opportunity. I said, Howard, we've just won, we've almost won a treble. We've just won the league and the Cup Cup. I said, why on earth would I want to leave this club? He says, oh, great. He said, we'll go and talk about a new contract. And I says, great. I said, and I could tell there was something up with him. You know, he was shuffling about in his seat and he was uncomfortable around me, which is unusual for him. And then he said, well, listen, I have to tell you that I'm going to buy Gary Lineker. And I says, so what are you telling me? He says, well, I'm going to play Sharpie and Gary Lineker next year if I get him. I said, well, to be quite honest with you, Howard, I can't play in the reserves. I said, I'm too old now. I want to play first team football. I don't want to leave this club. But, you know, you're forcing my hand. And I couldn't have just sat there and watched Sharpie and Links play together and sit on the bench. I just wouldn't have been me, Jeff. And at, 29, 30 years of age, I needed to play football. So I said to Howard, listen, thanks, I'll go. I'll make it easy for you. And I did, and you know, the lads went on this year and almost won the league, almost won the double that in the year after that. But it was a sad time for me because I really expected that I'd be with the boys for about another 2 or 3 years after that, finish my career at Everton, and then go from there. But sadly, it wasn't to be. But you know, it doesn't take away, you know, what Howard gave me the opportunity to achieve, to be part of. It was just sensational, and you know, he sold me. So what? That's what Howard has to do. He was manager. He was bringing in a younger, prolific goal scorer to play with Graham. Made absolute sense to me. Absolute sense.
For the boys who stayed, I mean, as Andy mentioned, more success was to come. The disappointment, Kevin, would be, you know, that because of Heysel, you know, you weren't allowed to play in Europe.
Yeah, that was a major disappointment for the club, because if you had a side that wasn't good enough to win the European Cup, then you wouldn't have a problem. But the side we had in the format it was, home and away, then we'd have certainly had a good run at it. So that was the biggest disappointment, not being able to, because when great teams are looked back on, you know, you're judged by the European Cups, and unfortunately we were unable to compete in it.
And that team actually broke up quite quickly, didn't it, Graham?
The whole makeup of the side kind of changed with the introduction of Gary. You know, tried to exploit his pace over the top all the time. We went a little bit more route one-ish. So that was disappointing. There was a shock when Andy said he was leaving. But as he said, Howard, the managers make their decision, live and die with what they do. But again, the European ban, I think, led to the breakup of the side. I think.
See, I wouldn't have gone, Jeff. Actually, that would have been the one thing that would have kept you there. You know, the fact that if I could have been part of a European Cup campaign, I would have stayed. But the fact of the matter, we couldn't. So. You know, that was another thing that made my decision an easier one than it was.
Yeah, but it was difficult. As I say, you can't take anything away from what we achieved. It would have been nice to go on maybe another 2 or 3 years and build on that. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, it wasn't to be. But certainly, as you said, the 18 months we had, whatever, where we went onto the pitch, you know, just thinking, we ain't going to get beat here. You know, it was a fantastic feeling to have. It wasn't being blasé or big-headed. It was just the inner confidence we had in ourselves. And people talk about captains. We had a fantastic captain in Kevin Ratcliffe, a great captain. But when you looked on that pitch, there was 11 captains. You know, if you weren't doing your job, Sheedy would tell you, Andy would tell you, Reedy would tell you, Brayson, and it was just part and parcel of what Howard had built. We talked about the camaraderie beforehand, you know, on and off the field, and it was a fantastic time to play football. Fantastic.
An exhilarating time for Everton Football Club. Graham, Kevin, Andy, very much enjoyed your stories. Thanks very much for sharing them.